The base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It is November 19th. It's MLS expansion draft day. It's USA-Cuba day in the CONCACAF Nations League. It's lots of things day. It's Tuesday Thoughts as well. So you want to join the conversation with us this morning, tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Use the hashtag Tuesday Thoughts. We will have some thoughts. We'll have some thoughts about the expansion draft up first. We'll get into that US-Cuba match as well, along with some MLS news and rumors around the league. Jason Longshore and John Nelson with you this morning. But, John, it's an important anniversary that we have to start with. It was 30 years ago today that Paul Caligiuri scored a goal in Trinidad and Tobago to send the U.S. to the World Cup for the first time in 40 years. They had been in 1950. They qualified for 1990, 30 years ago today in Trinidad. And that was a game that I remember watching. John Paul Delacamera, Seamus Mallon on the call on ESPN. Bob Lee broke into SportsCenter afterwards to talk about it as well. It was a big deal, and it was maybe the first time that anything revolving around the U.S. national team was a big deal. Now, on the grand scheme of things today, it was not a big deal at all. It was not any kind of a deal. It was very small. But at the time, just to have a U.S. team talked about anywhere in any kind of mainstream sports, it was big.
And I want to focus on Bob Lee for a second. And personally, we all know that there's always going to be that moment where you sit there and you want to hang it up for one reason or another. And I think that broadcasting is lesser now that Bob isn't around. And in a soccer sense, Bob has always been, going back to that day, he has always been one of the major flag bearers for the sport and all the aspects of it, whether we're talking domestically, internationally, World Cup, elections, you name it. Bob has always been at the forefront of that. And I think that I honestly can't believe it's been that long. I mean, it seems like on two fronts, it seems like it was 30 years. On the other front, it seems like it's not. But to think back and think about a guy like Bob Lee and how he has been one of the major representatives of the sport and has been one of the guys who has carried the sport forward in a studio sense for a network that either had that was a rights holder, was not a rights holder, but understood what it meant then, what it meant coming forward, and what it means today. And for me, Bob has always been one of the guys that you look for as one of those beacons when it comes to where soccer is and how important it is, whether it's the politics or the stuff on the pitch.
I mean, Bob, go way back before that when it comes to soccer. Bob Lee was a PA announcer for the Cosmos. Started with ESPN right after they launched, like 3 days after the network went live. And, I mean, there's videos out there of Bob Lee on play-by-play doing games in the early to mid-'80s national team games. Bob was a great play-by-play commentator on soccer as well. One of the best, one of the absolute best. He didn't do it as much because he was doing so much studio work at ESPN, but for somebody in such a prominent role to be a champion of the sport, it did have an impact. It absolutely had an impact. It was a very, very big deal. But it's a big day. I mean, when you look back, it feels like forever ago to me, because these are the days where you had a team from the United States that I'm looking at the lineup now. It was mostly college guys / guys on USSF contracts. Very few players who were playing overseas or professionally anywhere. Tony Meola had come into the team and was on quite a streak of clean sheets at the time, and he got one in this one. Propelled him to his long, illustrious career. Paul Caligiuri scored the goal. He was one of the first to break through in Europe, playing in Germany. But you had players like John Doyle, who played professionally here in Atlanta for the Ruckus in '95. Steve Trittschuh, who played in MLS and has coached as well. Mike Windishman was the captain of that group, captained the team in the 1990 World Cup. John Harkes, Tab Ramos, Peter Vermes, guys that you know very well, guys that are very, very involved in the game today. Brian Bliss has been involved behind the scenes as a technical director at a number of stops. Bruce Murray was the all-time leading scorer for the U.S. for a long time until Eric Winalda broke his record. Murray played here for the Ruckus in '95 as well. Coached here in the Atlanta area for quite a while, went on to coach at Harvard. And Paul Crumpy was the other starter. You had a lot of guys who just... I mean, this team, to give you a sense of where U.S. Soccer's come from, so they qualified, and nobody really knew what that meant. You know, the players, federation, coaching staff, anybody. Nobody really knew, okay, now what? You know, does everybody get a bonus? We didn't think about qualifying. There's no bonus structure. Like, there's no money. Werner Fricker was the president of U.S. Soccer, and he had to put up his, I believe it was his construction business. He had to put that up as collateral on a loan to get everything together to actually go to the World Cup. That's where U.S. Soccer was in 1990. It's not, it feels like forever ago because those days are thankfully long gone, but it's not that long ago, really, when you get down to it. And now you have a federation that is sitting on a huge surplus, a federation that is professional in every sense of the word. You have Major League Soccer. You have everything that is in American soccer today. And I know it's very easy to get frustrated about some of those things, and you should, and we do. But it has come a long way in a relatively short period of time. And that goal by Paul Caligiuri really sparked a lot of it. You know, there was concern that if the U.S. didn't qualify for 1990, and some of the things, obviously, with a federation that didn't have enough money to send a team to the World Cup, you kind of get a sense of where things were. Well, they'd already been awarded the 1994 World Cup to host it. There was a concern that if they didn't qualify, that FIFA might say, you know what, we're going to pull this. This isn't going to work. So if you don't have Paul Caligiuri's goal, if you don't have that World Cup in 94, you don't have Major League Soccer. You don't have what soccer in the United States is today. Could it have eventually gotten there? Sure, you're kind of talking about a part of the world that FIFA would like to make money in, so you're gonna get there eventually. But it wouldn't be what it is today if Paul Caligiuri doesn't score a goal 30 years ago today in Trinidad to send the U.S. to the World Cup. I mean, Trinidad, all they had to do was get a draw. Kind of funny how that works, U.S. and Trinidad, and one team needs a draw and one team needs to win, and things get weird. Well, it was weird the other way 30 years ago. The U.S. got the win that they had to get to qualify, and things changed in a big way.
I was going to ask you if, you know, for someone like you, if it felt like yesterday, even though it's more than half a life ago for a lot of folks. That was going to be my next question, and you kind of went into it a little bit.
It feels like forever ago. I mean, it's hard to even think of soccer being like that because, I mean, this was a time in late 1989 where you had the MISL, which wasn't doing all that great as the 80s came to a close, and I never really got into the indoor game like that anyway. You had the AP, or no, it wasn't even the APSL at that time. It was the ASL version 3.0, I think. And I believe there was a separate league in the West, and you were just starting to get back to what would become the APSL and then become the A League and then merge with the USISL. You had the USISL, but it was very regional at the time. You just didn't really have anything in the way of local clubs. You just didn't. and you would have a few soccer shops here and there. At that time, we were living in Lexington, Kentucky. My dad had got transferred with the post office, and there was one really cool soccer shop there. Gwen does not remember it, but she's trying to tell stories like she does. It was a very cool little soccer shop that was like in a house of some sort, and that was the only place you could get anything soccer related. And I had my subscription to Soccer America and would drag my parents to the soccer shop, as often as I possibly could, and was playing in the local league in Lexington, and that was what soccer was. We didn't really have anything else to compare it to, so it felt completely different. I mean, I guess it felt kind of like lacrosse does now, where it's like you have a lot of kids playing it, but you don't have a professional game to look to. So it feels very different. Today, it feels like night and day. I mean, it's hard to imagine that it was only 30 years ago.
I was one of the guys. You had Soccer America. I had Soccer Digest.
Yeah, Soccer America was still around then too. When you had Soccer Digest, Soccer Digest just did the digests of all the different sports, and Soccer Digest was around for a little while. Had that too. Didn't last that long. I think once the NASL went away and
pretty much
MISL was pretty much fizzling, Soccer Digest kind of went away as well. They didn't see the need to make it. So you were down to Soccer America, which was purely soccer, and it's still today, and it's still a great resource. I love that Soccer America, something I grew up with, has kind of repurposed itself into a great resource for the game and found a way to survive into the modern, way of journalism. It's still a great resource. It was then. I mean, one of the things I held on to for a long time until it basically fell apart was the 1990 World Cup preview edition, because it was the first World Cup preview edition, one, I'd ever seen, and two, had the United States in it, and had, it was like your college football preview magazines you would buy and your pro football magazines and all that you would buy before the season. It was that for the World Cup, and had all the profiles of all the players and all these different players I'd never heard of and knew nothing about because we didn't have access to it. So it was a very cool time to see the game grow up from this point 30 years ago very quickly to the World Cup. And it felt very different after the U.S. played in a World Cup.
In that World Cup, what was your first memory in that World Cup competition involving the United States?
Well, the first memory is getting spanked by Czechoslovakia. I mean, that was the first game. But the best memory of that was nearly beating Italy in Rome. Gave up a kind of bad goal, and it looked like, oh, boy, here we go again. It's going to be another pummeling because Italy was one of the favorites. And the U.S. fought and played well, and Peter Vermes took a free kick that Walter Zenga luckily had a big rear end and saved it with it because it got through his legs and he was crouching down, and his large backside took the heat off of the shot because it was a great free kick, a great shot, and then they cleared the rebound. That was the best opportunity the U.S. had. It was very narrowly a dramatic 1-1 game in Rome for the U.S. and Italy. That was the one. The Czechoslovakia game, everybody's like, see, the United States can't play soccer. They stink. The Italy game was like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe there is something here. And that was where guys like John Harkes and Tab Ramos and so many others in that team kind of changed the narrative a bit.
Then off of that first World Cup on the whole, got your first memory, got your first good memory. Your takeaway of that World Cup competition on the whole, where the U.S. was concerned.
I mean, that was
what you think about that
games.
First effort?
Well, there were only 3 games. I mean, you didn't know because I didn't have a basis for comparison. I mean, all I'd been told all my life was that Americans can't play soccer. So you lost 3 games. Or no, did they draw the Austria game? They might have, actually. No, they lost it. They lost it. So you go in and you did maybe a little bit better than people thought, but not well. And, it was just cool to actually be able to see a whole World Cup. I mean, that World Cup was on TNT here in the United States. Bob Neal did a lot of play-by-play.
Mick
Mick
Luckhurst?
Luckhurst, former Falcons kicker, was color commentator. They had others as well, but those are the two that jumped out to me. I know JP was on some of it too. But that was the last World Cup with commercial breaks. And I think there were multiple times that they come back from commercial and it's like, oh, yeah, we have a goal. Oops. But all the games were on TV. And I think that was the first time in the United States that every game was broadcast here. And I mean, I remember getting together with kids in the neighborhood to watch the Argentina-Cameroon game, the first game of the tournament. The epic foul on Claudio Caniggia. It's one of those World Cup moments that kind of lives in infamy because Caniggia, that was where he really broke through in the World Cup with Argentina. Fast, such a fast player. Argentina's trailing 1-0. It was a bad Argentina team that somehow got to the final that year, but in this game they were losing to Cameroon. Caniggia breaks through at midfield, gets hit, stumbles but keeps his balance. Referee plays advantage, gets hit again by another player who comes sliding in, knocks him more off balance, but the referee doesn't blow the whistle yet. And then I think it was Benjamin Massing comes in with a flying hip check that sends Caniggia tumbling 20 yards, it felt like. And Massing hit the guy so hard his shoe came off. It was nuts. But that was the first World Cup opener I had a chance to see. U.S. played a couple days later. It wasn't a great World Cup as a whole. It was pretty defensive, and that's why they got rid of the back pass rule, because this was back when if you wanted to waste time, you could pass the ball back to the goalkeeper. He could pick it up, walk around a little bit, set it down, pass it out to a defender. Defender would pass it back to the goalkeeper, pick it up again. Now you can't do that. It kind of speeds the game up a little bit. There was a lot of that in this tournament, but you had a couple great matches. The England-Cameroon World Cup quarterfinal is one of the all-time greats. Extra time, England had to battle and eventually won. Paul Gascoigne was incredible in this tournament. The scene that I think most people will remember from the semifinal against West Germany, where he picked up a yellow that meant he'd be suspended for the final if they got there. And you could see him start to tear up a little bit because he realized it. And I think it was Gary Lineker who looked over at the bench and was like, keep an eye on him. He's about to lose it. But he was unbelievable in that tournament. Maradona on one leg, basically carrying Argentina to the final, beating Italy in Naples, and that whole crazy game that was talked about in the Maradona documentary. It was that was my first introduction to the World Cup, and just there's not a ton of memories of the U.S. in it because they weren't in it very long, and they didn't really do a ton to make you want to write home about. But just the fact that they were there, just the fact that they were part of it was a big deal and changed the idea of what U.S. soccer could be going into '94. And then they capitalized on that, both on the field getting to the knockout round and off the field with the success of the tournament and with Major League Soccer starting. So it all kind of got its start in a lot of ways 30 years ago today.
TNT's crew for 1990. Bob Neal, JP, Randy Hahn, Rick Davis, Ty Keogh, and your studio host, Ernie Johnson Jr.
Yep. It was it was interesting because it was the first time that Turner had done anything with soccer, and it was the last time before the Champions League. I'm trying to think what else stood out to me about that. It was in a time too, you couldn't easily get World Cup kits. I mean, now Dick's Sporting Goods has World Cup kits in front of the store. Then even soccer shops didn't really have them. You had Eurosport. You had the Eurosport catalog that you would get once a month, and you could order stuff from there. And I don't even remember if they actually had the U.S. jerseys then. I don't think they did. It's very rare to see the 1990 era U.S. jerseys for sale anywhere, and they're probably player or team issues when they are, because they're it's not like replicas were available. So that was the World Cup where I really fell in love with Cameroon and that team with Roger Mila. It was the World Cup where Roberto Baggio emerged on the world stage. It was like it was the introduction to the international game for me, just because we had never had access to it here. So it changed everything. It really did. Paul Caligiuri's goal really changed everything 30 years ago in Trinidad.
And then going back even further, 86, NBC had Charlie Jones involved. 82, ESPN, we talked about Bob Lee. 82 was Bob Lee, Seamus Mallon, and PBS's Toby Charles.
Yeah, see, I don't remember anything from 82 being on ESPN, but I was also 5. 86, that was where I first saw soccer on TV, and that was games on NBC and on ESPN. ESPN picked up games during the week. And I saw some of it, but not all the games were broadcast. So, and didn't really know exactly what it was until the later stages of the tournament. So 90 was the first time that it felt modern. And a big part is because the United States was in it. I mean, TNT doesn't pick up the rights if the United States isn't in it. So you don't have all those games on TV. I mean, we would go out in the park behind the house and play 2-on-2 or whatever. And it's like, okay, you be Cameroon and you be Brazil. All right, cool. Which players are we going to be? It was that kind of thing, because it was the first time we had that opportunity to see it. So it was like I said, it was a big, big deal. It's a very important milestone to remember and to talk about. And I think it was Bruce Murray who said it to The Guardian a few years ago, talking about that 1990 team. Paul Caligiuri should be getting like residuals or something from U.S. Soccer for the rest of his life, because that goal, it's a spectacular goal, but just that goal was so big that, yes, go ahead and put him on the payroll for life, and you're good to go. That's how big it was. Let's take a quick break. Share your Tuesday thoughts with us. If you want to go back off of that, go for it. Let us know if you were watching, if you remember it, what your memories are of the early days of the U.S. in the World Cup in the modern era anyway. And we're going to get into MLS expansion draft as well. We have a couple mock drafts to talk about. The draft will be later today. Will Atlanta United lose anybody? It's possible. Will these teams, Miami and Nashville, actually hold on to their picks, or will they trade them all? It's possible. They might pick guys and then trade them. It's going to be an interesting late afternoon watch session on MLSsoccer.com. We'll try to get you set for it right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. November 19th edition, MLS Expansion Draft Day. We'll get into that here in just a second, but we've got some Tuesday thoughts from the listeners. What do we have?
Kevin from Charlotte with the most important question we've had this morning.
Okay.
Where can I get an SDH hoodie?
You can get an SDH hoodie over at our friends Teespring. So, go to teespring.com/stores/soccer-down-here. If you go to teespring.com and you search soccer down here, you'll get to it as well. And we will tweet and Facebook and all of that out there again along the way. But over at Teespring, you can get a hoodie, you can get a t-shirt, you can get a coffee mug, you can get all kinds of different things, stickers, whatever you like to show your SDH love. It all goes back into the show to allow us to grow and do more things and improve microphones and cameras for upcoming projects and such. We will be doing more and more and more and more and more if we can. And this type of stuff helps us do it. So hoodies, t-shirts, stickers, all on Teespring. If you want to get a scarf, you can send us a message or you can come out and see us. You can come out and see us tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight. Over at Wild Heaven West End Brewery, over at the Lee and White Complex. So tonight, it's myself, it's Mike Conti, it's Kevin Egan. We are going to be talking, obviously, about the expansion draft because it'll be finished a couple hours before we start. But it is a broadcasters roundtable. So we're going to talk about broadcasting. We're going to talk about travel. We're going to talk about the 2019 season and road trips and some of the challenges and some of the fun that we've had doing this. And we'll start to look ahead to 2020 now that we know what game number 1 of the MLS season will be in Nashville. I think there's going to be a lot of black and red in that stadium. It's just a thought. I think there's going to be a lot of black and red in Music City that weekend, all over Broadway and the rest of the downtown area. It's going to be a huge deal. I'm really curious to see how tickets get handled, how everything gets handled. But no matter what the allotment is for Atlanta United official away tickets, there's going to be a lot more people wearing red and black there in that building than they're allotted. It's Nashville's first MLS game, too, so it's not like Nashville's not going to show up. It's going to be massive. It's very cool. It's Saturday night at 8 o'clock Eastern on February 29th. The earliest start to the MLS season ever. And Atlanta and Nashville will not kick off the season, I don't think. I'm assuming there's probably games that'll kick off before that. But a very big opening to the season. So Kevin, Mike, and I will be talking about that, expansion draft, what the rest of the offseason looks like, what it's like to do what we do. We'll be taking questions from you guys as well. And the only way to hear it tonight is going to be to show up. Sorry. We want our friends at West End to have a lot of people coming through the doors over at Wild Heaven. So there will be a version that goes out, and it'll go out over the weekend. But if you want to hear the conversation tonight, come out and join us over at Wild Heaven West End. The kitchen will be firing off some tacos, and you will have lots of different Wild Heaven beers to sample and try and partake in, even some that I don't think you can get anywhere else. That's what's pretty cool about that facility. I love the place, and hopefully we'll be doing a lot more things with them because it's such a cool venue, and we'll be christening it in an SDH way tonight.
Katie Weaver was also wondering yesterday if there were going to be some eatery type things available as well for the in addition to the liquid that was going to be there.
Yes, and the other thing too about that complex is, okay, if beer's not your thing and you'd rather have one, they do have coffee. The cool thing about the Wild Heaven facility is they open at 8:00 in the morning every day, and it's almost like a community center. Like, people will come in and work, and like, we're going to do a show from there one morning just to do it. It'll be cool. But coffee, it's honestly like a community meeting place. It's very cool what Wild Heaven is doing in that facility. But you have other breweries, restaurants, you have other things going on in that complex, and it is open container. So if you want to go get a mixed drink at one of the other places, come down, cool. You can do that and come in and listen to the show.
So you're saying there are a lot of different things that you can do in addition to coming to see us, and you can mix and match while you come and see us tonight.
Yes.
Okay. We do have some folks who have chimed in about that matchup in Nashville.
Okay.
Bartimus Prime, his Tuesday thought, he says, going to be an arrogant fan of a dominant team visiting another city and stadium with 10,000 plus fellow fans. Is this what being a UGA fan feels like?
It has been known to happen. And it has been known that red and black has taken over stadiums where the home team doesn't wear red and black. I've seen it firsthand. So, just saying, maybe. Hopefully the winning is a little different.
Shiva's really super excited about opening the season in Nashville, but when are we going to get a season opener at home?
I don't know. Does it really matter? I don't know. I saw people getting bent out of shape about it. I mean, it's 3 in a row now. You don't lose out on home games if you don't get the first one. You're going to get others. So it's just the way that the schedule works out. Making a schedule is so hard. I mean, I did the scheduling for the NPSL South region when we had 5, 6. I don't think we got up to 8 before I stopped doing it. Maybe we did. Maybe we did have 8 the last time. And it's so hard because you're dealing with stadium availability, you're dealing with team requests, you're dealing with certain days where teams can't host, certain days where teams want to be on the road, certain days where they want to host and they're demanding to host, and it's just so crazy. I couldn't imagine doing it for a league as big as MLS and all the different moving pieces that go into it. So something like that, trust me, they're not thinking about it when they're putting together the schedule. This one is probably one that they had an idea of, this would be a great way to kick things off for Nashville. Can we put this together? Yes, we can. Let's go ahead and do it. And that's probably a big reason why Atlanta's on the road, is they know that Atlanta fans will travel. They know it will create a spectacle in Nashville, and that will be good ultimately for the game there. I mean, if Nissan Stadium is open all the way and you've got, I have no idea. I don't know what the number is going to be. I have no idea how many Atlanta fans will be there. I remember about 7,000 or 8,000 Atlanta fans driving up to Chattanooga for a preseason game in 2017. So Nashville's not that much further. I'm expecting it will be a lot of people. Even I think there'll be people who go that don't have tickets. I think there'll be people who go that try to get tickets last minute. There'll be people who buy tickets from Nashville folks. Then the away allotment will obviously be completely and utterly sold out. So it'll be big, and it'll be big in the Nashville media because it'll give them a sense of, okay, this is the expectation. It's not the USL days anymore where you're getting, Louisville or Cincinnati when they were there traveling down and bringing some fans, not Birmingham coming up and bringing some fans. It's, okay, that's what it's like. That's what it's going to be like on the 29th of February. So the Nashville media will be all over it, and that's a good thing for the game as a whole because this will make it an absolute spectacle. Great way to kick off the year.
Michael Ruiz. So the first game of the 2020 season's in Nashville. I'm setting the bare minimum of fans at that game at 500. My preliminary over-under is set at 750. If we got close to 300 in the season opener in Houston in 2018, we will blow by that number.
I think Michael's numbers. I am betting.
Need to add a zero.
Yeah, I am betting the 3 cheese macaroni and cheese from Mercedes-Benz Stadium on the over, because that's the greatest thing ever made, and it's a must-eat every time. That is going on the over because, I think 500 is, it's way past that. Now, at 5,000, I mean, where are you going to get the tickets? Because you're going to have an allotment of whatever the number is. I don't know what it'll be because Nashville hasn't said if they're opening the whole stadium yet. I would assume they would. They'd be crazy not to take the money. But they also don't want to have their stadium overrun by Atlanta United fans. And that's something that they're going to have to consider because it could happen. So, you're saying 5,000? That's probably high. Just because I don't think Nashville will make it that easy for Atlanta United fans to get those tickets.
Well, when we get to February, you could check in with our friends at SeatGiant.com, and the secondary market, I'm sure, will have some.
Yeah, but you're also not giving Nashville fans any credit. And I don't think that's fair either because, look, Nashville's had USL, and I think a lot of people have said, oh, well, their attendance was disappointing this year. I think a lot of people were gearing up for MLS. I mean, and you're talking about a different experience with USL Championship at First Tennessee Park, which is not the greatest venue for soccer, versus playing at Nissan Stadium in the big house and getting ready to build your own stadium and doing it big. And this is going to kick that up another notch. So the excitement from Nashville fans is going to be massive. I don't think it's going to be a given just that Atlanta United can buy any ticket that they want here, that fans can buy any ticket that they want. I don't think that's fair to Nashville fans. I think Nashville's going to really blow this up. But
I want them to show up and show out. I really do.
It's their first game. I mean, duh. Like, I don't even know why that's a question. And people who are questioning that, I think, are being foolish. Like, is Nashville going to be Atlanta in terms of fan support? That's a big bar to set. And I don't know if it's possible or impossible. I don't want to say that it's impossible, but that is saying that if it's not, it's a failure. No, that's wrong, because what Atlanta has done straight out of the gates is unprecedented in this league. Seattle did it to a slightly lesser extent, but Atlanta's blown this up to just a level that not everybody's going to get to, and that's okay. But I think Nashville will do really well with this, because this gives them the first game that is, oh my God, this is must see.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a Nashville fan, or if you're a soccer fan in Nashville and you haven't gotten bitten by the bug yet of Nashville SC, well, this will help do it.
Tafka's not happy. He says he's so pissed they made it match week 1. I've got a 15-day vacation starting 3 days after that. I can't swing a whole weekend trip prior to vacation. I know, first world problem.
Sorry, Tafka. Next time I will ask Don Garber to check with you.
And then Tafka says there's bound to be schedule software that makes it easier these days. If not, tech guys,
sure.
Get on it.
For sure. But, yeah, you can throw it into a software program to figure it out. But that doesn't take all of the, okay, now what would we like to make happen? We want this team at home on July 4th because we know they'll draw on July 4th. We want this rivalry game to be this weekend because this is where we have our partnership with Heineken. We want to put all these games on the same weekend. There's so many things that, yeah, you can get the base done with software, but it's hard to get the entire schedule done that way.
And our friend over at Soccer Metrics, dear Howard, has pulled a photo, it looks like, from Georgia and Notre Dame this year in South Bend. And so Howard is now saying, let's make this the Atlanta version of 40,000 Newell supporters at the Avellaneda in 2004.
What? That was not Georgia and Notre Dame. I'm confused.
Picture from J. Sam Jones. It says the crowd at the first Atlanta United Nashville game. And it's a picture from South Bend of all of the Georgia.
Yes, but
folks
Howard's tweet had nothing to do with that, so I was confused.
Well, I was reading one after the other thinking they were related.
Last time I checked, Notre Dame Stadium is not the Avellaneda. I think it's just Notre Dame Stadium.
Yeah, but I think that Howard is looking for Nissan to be Notre Dame when Georgia came to play for the Atlanta United Nashville game as a comparison.
Oh yeah, Dios mío. We'll come back to that in a little bit.
Okay, we're caught up on Nashville stuff.
Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll do expansion draft mock drafts, and we'll see if we agree or disagree or where we think this could go tonight. Right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Okay, I went back and looked at the tweet. I think I understand what was going on now. I was a little confused. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay, but there will be a lot of red and black, just like there was at Notre Dame Stadium, and just like Newell's fans have done many, many, many times, especially 40,000 fans 20 years or 15 years ago. Okay, I'm caught up. I understand what's going on now. I was a little confused. It's early. I do know what's going on with the expansion draft today, though. It's pretty simple the way this thing works. Miami picks first. They elected to take the first pick in this. 5 rounds. You get 5 players each. It's very possible that deals will be made involving these picks. It's very possible that teams are saying, hey, Miami, I got some allocation money for you if you pick this guy. I think that's going to happen quite a bit. Matt Doyle alluded to that on Extra Time yesterday, that he's hearing there's lots of wheeling and dealing potentially going on, because this is pre-reentry draft, this is pre-free agency, this is pre-waiver draft. These guys, this is your first crack at them, and there's 10 names that are going to be said. So if you are a team out there and says, you know what, we really want to get player X, and we don't want to wait until our pick comes up in the reentry draft or whatever, you throw some allocation money at Miami or Nashville, and there you go. It's 3 minutes between picks. No trades permitted during the draft, but again, you can see, as we've seen many, many times, a pick made with the intention to trade it. Miami has the first pick. That's the most obvious one to trade. Would not shock me at all if it is traded. Go back to Atlanta United. trading Donnie Toya after their first pick of Toya, getting a number 8 pick in the super draft. And no, they didn't know that number 8 pick would turn into Julian Gressel. It worked out pretty well, though. So who could be a player like that? There's so many in this draft because you have a mix of guys who are on designated player deals. You have a mix of guys who are on TAM deals. You have guys who are on senior minimum deals. You have veterans and you have teenagers. Like, it's a very wide selection. Couple mock drafts out there, and I'll give Greg Seltzer and let's see, did Seltzer do his by himself? I think he did. Over at The Athletic, Seltzer for MLSsoccer.com. Over at The Athletic, Sam Stajkal and Jeff Reuter did a mock draft. It's really hard because you don't know exactly how these are going to be used. You don't know what trades could be in the mix. So it's more about the players that are on this list as opposed to where they get picked and by who. The first pick from The Athletic was Sebastian Ibeagha. The first pick from MLSsoccer.com was Brandon Vasquez. Ibeagha went second at MLSsoccer.com, and Vasquez went second on The Athletic. So we'll talk about those two guys specifically. I'm with both outlets. I think Ibeagha is the player to pick from New York City. I think you're talking about a 27-year-old in his prime who I think started close to 30 games for New York City. Showed a little versatility at the end when he played right back. A guy who was USL Defender of the Year in 2017. The player who preceded him as USL Defender of the Year is Aaron Long, and I think we know what Aaron Long's up to these days. He'll be playing in the Cayman Islands for the United States against Cuba tonight. Ibeagha went to a team that they didn't have a starting spot for him, but he's delivered when he's played. I think he's a center back who can start for either team in this draft, either Miami or Nashville, or could be a player that is picked and traded. I think he's a guy who can start in Major League Soccer, and I'm with both. I think he'll be the New York City pick over a guy like Ben Sweat, over a guy like Brad Stuver at goalkeeper. Jesus Medina was another one that Extra Time Radio talked about. Medina's on a designated player deal. I think Ibeagha is the kind of player who gets picked here, either to keep and build around or to move on to a team that needs a starting center back.
I had, in the completely and totally illogical and for no reason John's going to do a mock draft on his own mock draft, I had Ibeagha going to Nashville.
Yeah,
as the NYCFC
again,
player.
I don't want to get hung up on where they're going and when they're going. I had Ibeagha getting picked. I had Nashville going after him to keep him. I think he's a guy that they should keep and play next to Dave Romney and be in good spot. Brandon Vasquez was the other one that was the first pick for these two outlets. A lot of people have zeroed in on Vasquez with Miami because of the relationship with Paul McDonough. It makes sense. It's a logical thing to think. I do from the Atlanta perspective, and you have to think about it this way because, you know, it's easy just to look at the list and say, okay, take the 10 best players. But you have to think about the other players available from the team as well, because once you take one, everybody else is off the board. For New York City, I think Ibeagha is the one that makes the most sense. For Atlanta, I don't know if it's that clean cut. And maybe it's because I think Alec Can has shown he could be a starting goalkeeper in this league, and if somebody agrees with that, they might go get him first. Florentine Pogba is on an option, but he's a player that you could, I think, easily see as a starter in this league and decide, you know what, I'm going to take him and bring him in. And all the talk about, you know, Pogba and how great he's been in the locker room and with the group, that's the kind of player you want in a new team to build that personality of it. So those are the other two for me that jump out that I think you have to consider from Atlanta. But Vasquez, because of his age, because of the contract number he's on, it is definitely a possibility that he gets picked, and he gets picked high. And I think it's definitely a possibility that he gets picked to keep, not to pick and then deal. For a young team, both of these teams have youth up top. Julian Carranza and now Jerome Kiesewetter was signed by Miami yesterday, played in Germany, but played last season with El Paso, which was a move that really surprised me that El Paso was able to get him. Well, I think part of that, the idea was he would eventually get into MLS quickly. Kiesewetter could be a really good signing for Inter Miami. So you've got a 26-year-old who is making his MLS debut alongside Julian Carranza, who is going to be 19-20 when the season starts, making his MLS debut from Bonfield. Brandon Vasquez would be a nice addition to that group. He'd be a nice addition to the Cameron Lancaster, Daniel Rios group with Nashville as well. So I could see him going either way, and I could see him picked, but I'm not 100% that, oh, yeah, that's the only option from Atlanta.
Yeah, I had Vasquez as the player selected of the 10, but yeah, to your point, I'll agree with you on those other options of Pogba and Can as possibilities as well.
Yeah, I do think Vasquez will ultimately be the pick. I think the youth and the contract number, there's too much upside there. But Can and Pogba are both interesting wild cards as well. Next round for the Athletic, they went with Hector Jimenez from Columbus to Miami, Tyler Miller from LAFC to Nashville. MLSsoccer.com went Luis Argudo from Columbus to Miami, and Mohamed El Munir from LAFC to Nashville. So same teams, but different players from those teams. Jimenez is somebody who should be picked in this draft, in my opinion. And Columbus has a bunch of guys that are intriguing. Waylon Francis is one of them as a left back. Argudo is one. Eduardo Sosa is another one that I like. But Hector Jimenez as a defender who can play on the left, on the right, in the middle, can even play a little bit of holding midfield if you need it. A versatile defender for a new team is a really smart pickup. So I would go Jimenez. I had him in my group of players that would get picked. I had him going to Miami because right now all they have defensively is Grant Lillard and Christian Macoun. Lillard hasn't really broken through yet with his time as a Chicago homegrown. Macoun, a teenager right now, would be making his MLS debut. Jimenez, 31, would be one of those veterans in the locker room that you need to build around. So I'd go Jimenez over Argudo, even though I really like Argudo. Jimenez just makes the most sense for a new team to pick a player and to keep.
And the Miami variant in all of this, I would think that Miami would not have any fear in going after the higher-priced individuals that are out there for the expansion draft. Jimenez coming in at $200,000.
No, I disagree with that. I mean, 200 is not high-priced, first off. Like that's nothing. But Paul McDonough said it on Extra Time. Like, he wants to keep as much of his allocation money available for his big signings. And he says that they're going to use all their designated player spots. They're going to go out and spend. It's got to happen pretty soon. But I don't think he wants to. Jimenez doesn't fall into this category. But a guy like Juan Agudelo would, for example, who's on just over $600,000. I don't think Agudelo, after listening to McDonough, would be a player that Miami would want to take because they wouldn't want to use their allocation money in that type of way. They'd rather use it to bring in an impact player, and if they don't see Agudelo as that, and I think it's fair to say that they don't, then yeah, I'd be a little surprised if he goes there. And I originally had him as a Miami pick because I think he could be a great spot for them. But after hearing that from McDonough, I don't know if it fits their strategy. So Jimenez, 200,000, that's fine. I think anything 200,000 and lower, if you're going to get minutes out of that player, yep, you're good. You're absolutely good. Now, the difference in the LAFC player picked here, Athletic went Tyler Miller, and that was Jeff Reuter, and Seltzer at MLS Soccer went with El Munir. I don't think Tyler Miller gets picked because all the talk is that he's going to go to Europe. I don't think you waste a pick on him.
Right.
You definitely don't early. If he's still there and no LAFC player has been picked and you're in the last round, maybe just to hold on to his rights or to trade his rights, maybe. But I think there's other goalkeepers in the draft that are going to be available, and I don't think it's worth it. El Munir, I do think is worth it. Mohamed El Munir is a good left back who can get forward. He's another one at just over $200,000 a year, 27 years old. I've been impressed with him in Orlando first and with LAFC. He's had some injury issues both places. He's an international, so you do have to factor that in. But if you look at LAFC players, other ones that could be available, Lee Nguyen has grabbed a lot of people's attention potentially, but you're also talking about an older player. How much does he have left? And a higher priced player. If there's a wild card from LAFC, for me, it'd be Josh Perez, right winger, 21 years old, came up in Italy at first before coming back to LAFC, really just never found his way into Bob Bradley's team. He's on $76,000 a year last year. He's a young player that I could see maybe taking a flyer on, but if you want a left back that can start day one, El Munir's that guy.
Lee Nguyen is at 530 when it comes to salary, and you were mentioning Agudelo. I had Agudelo on my list of 10, but as an asset, not as a keep.
And could be. And that, if Miami was to take Agudelo, I think it would be to flip him. I just don't know if they would use that pick there. Lee Nguyen and Agudelo both kind of fit into the Nashville side of things as, I could see it, but you also have players in those roles already. Lee Nguyen would go into a midfield that has Hani Mukhtar, who's a designated player, has Derek Jones, who gives you more of the box-to-box element, Dax McCarty, Anibal Godoy, who are going to sit and defend. Then up top, they have Cameron Lancaster, Daniel Rios. If you look at Agudelo as a winger, if you're going to play some 4-3-3, okay, maybe, but I think Gary Smith wants to go 3-5-2 out of the gate. Now, it's going to depend on what kind of roster he has, but I think that's his preference. And if you have two guys, if you see Lancaster and Rios as starters, well, then I don't know if Agudelo fits. If you see a rotation of three, maybe. But there are teams where Agudelo could fit, and he would be one of those guys that could get picked and flipped. So, okay, so that takes us through 4 picks. We'll get through the rest on the other side of the break, and we'll get back to your Twitter timeline as well as we go through what we could see tonight in the MLS expansion draft. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, SDH, November 19th, MLS Expansion Draft Day. We're trying to make sense of what things could look like tonight. Trades can happen after the draft, and things could get weird, so stay tuned. Make sure you're getting notifications from all your favorites on Twitter, and come out and join us at Wild Heaven West End. We'll be talking about all the things that go down, because there generally are after these things. You've seen it over the year where guys have been picked and then immediately traded. So I guess be on the lookout to see if there's players that get picked that don't immediately get a social media graphic from the team that's picking them, because it might be fair to bet that they're about to get traded somewhere else. That might be your tell if that happens. It's just words. Well, that might be what's about to happen. So stay tuned to that. We'll keep you posted on everything as it goes tonight. Let's dig back into the mock drafts. So The Athletic and MLSsoccer.com went through this process, and what I'm finding going through it is a lot of the players are similar, and similar to what I kind of had in mind, what John had in mind as well. It's just the way they get picked is going to be almost impossible to predict. So round 3 with The Athletic, they go Harry Shipp to Miami and Zarek Valentine to Nashville. MLS Soccer goes Gideon Zalalem to Miami, Alvis Powell to Nashville. Okay. So let's take these 4 players individually. Shipp and Valentine are both 2 guys that I can see picked. Both 2 guys that I would have in the 10 guys that get picked today. Shipp, I had to Nashville, just because I could see them being a little more willing to take on a veteran like that. I think he could fit in what Gary Smith wants to do, either playing as a 10 or playing out wide. So his versatility would be good. Harry Shipp's a very talented player. I think he's just been one of those guys that, for whatever reason, has been on the periphery of good teams and hasn't been looked at as a key guy. And maybe a move like this to an expansion team, he becomes a key guy. He's still only 28 years old, and he's only on $235,000 from last year. So age manageable. You could get a good 4 years, 5 years out of him at a good level. You've got a salary that you can make work in your cap. He would be a guy that could go either way. I tend to think Nashville, but if he went to Miami with the number 3, I wouldn't be shocked there either.
Zalalem, on the flip side, has a salary figure of just under $78,000 as well.
He's more of a wild card, though, and he's more of a deep-lying central midfielder. So Zalalem, according to MLSsoccer.com, to Miami, positionally would fit. He could play with Victor Ulloa in that midfield or play in place of Ulloa. But Zalalem, with the injuries he had at Arsenal, you're still kind of trying to get him back to where he might be able to live up to the potential that we've all thought he would be. And I mean, not just us, but Arsene Wenger and the brain trust at Arsenal thought too. Injuries just have completely derailed him. Can he get there? It's a risk worth taking. I did not have him in my 10 guys picked, but it's a risk that wouldn't shock me just because of that potential and because of his age. You're a couple years away now from the major injury that slowed his career down, so maybe he's back physically feeling right. He played a good bit of minutes in the Kansas City organization last year with Swope Park and with Sporting, so it's a pick that makes sense. I don't know if he's better than some of the other potential picks. MLS Soccer had Alvin Powell to Nashville. Powell's a guy that is definitely on my short list. I didn't have him going. 25 years old, $252,000. He does not count as an international player. He has a green card. Can get forward, can be very effective getting forward from a right back position. For Nashville, if they play 3-5-2, if you play him as a wing back, I think it makes even more sense because defensively he's a bit of a liability. So if you're going to play 3-5-2, 5-3-2, Powell's a really good pick.
I did not have Powell on mine, although it does make sense, and I still have 2 goalkeeper slots on the board.
Slow down.
I am.
We're only in round 3, buddy. So Zarek Valentin is the other player that was picked in this round. This from the Athletic to Nashville. I actually think Powell makes more sense for Nashville, assuming they play 3-5-2 than Valentin. I think Valentin is a better defender than Powell. Both former Timbers. Powell moved on to Cincinnati last year in the draft. Valentin is a better fit for a 4-man backline. I almost feel like he could go to Miami, and that's where I had him going. And a veteran, a guy who can, who has been in big games before, 28 years old, only $160,000 on the cap. That's right. Definitely manageable. Valentin getting picked, I absolutely do see that tonight. And I think he's the Portland Timber that comes off the board. And that could change another player that I originally thought might get picked in Andy Polo. Polo is on a great number, 150,000. He's an international. He's 25 years old. He's been good, not great for the Timbers. He's got potential. Do you take a potential pick here if you're one of these teams, or do you take a sure thing or more of a sure thing? Because nothing's absolutely a sure thing. Valentin is more of a sure thing than Andy Polo, although the upside from Polo is far greater than it would be for Valentin. So those are the things you have to balance when you start looking through this expansion draft. I think because both teams really need to build their back line and they need guys with MLS experience, Valentin is the Timber who gets picked.
Yep.
Okay,
Excuse
round
me.
4. Athletic goes with Abu Dunladi to Miami and Tsubasa Endo to Nashville. MLS Soccer goes Olivier Mbaizo to Miami and Abu Dunladi to Nashville. So let's start with Dunladi since both have him going in this round to different teams. Number 1 pick in the Super Draft in 2017, hasn't lived up to that just yet. Only 24, on 180,000, but he is same draft year as Gressel. So is his contract up? Is he going into an option? I would assume as a number 1 pick, he's either got 1 more year and then an option, or he's going into the option. I don't think he would be completely out of contract if Gressel is on an option year. So you've at least got him for another year at that kind of number, and you give him a year to see if he can live up to the hype that he had coming out of college that I don't think he has. I think he's wildly inconsistent. Would a change of scenery tweak that? Potentially. I think there's more sure things in the draft. I would actually not go with Dunladi.
Endo was the Toronto player that I had picked. And it goes from, honestly, it goes all the way back from the time that we got to see him 2 seasons ago with TFC, with TFC2, and how he has developed into this past season as a good player for Toronto FC. So Endo, and I think his salary number was high 5 figures. And for me, that was his improvement and his salary number were the 2 main reasons I had him on my list.
So I like Endo a lot, and I could easily see him picked. I think there's another guy from Toronto that we'll talk about if he's not picked in these mock drafts that I think will ultimately get picked. But Endo is a player who could be a great fit for a Nashville or a Miami. And in the Athletic piece, it's a funny back and forth between Reuter and Stejkal about who to pick from Toronto, and they went in a different direction that I ultimately went. They talked about John Baquero as well. John Baquero is a really intriguing pick in this draft for me. I just don't think there's been a place for him to play in Toronto. He's been out on loan. Originally picked by Chicago. They traded him to Toronto. Toronto has loaned him to Phoenix. He played in Phoenix this year. He's a very talented player, a very technical player. There's always been a concern about speed and been a concern about exactly what position best suits him. He could be available in other ways if you want to get him. I think there's other Toronto players, and I would pick Endo before Baquero.
Yeah.
And I would pick somebody else before both of them from Toronto. We'll get there in a second. But I do really like John Baquero. And if I'm one of these expansion teams and I'm starting from scratch, and Miami feels like the one to me that his playing style could really suit what we think Miami will ultimately be, don't be surprised if John Baquero ends up playing somewhere in MLS next year and potentially with one of these two teams. I really like Baquero's game. Good year with Phoenix. Okay, and so we've gotten into Danladi, we've gotten into Endo, we haven't talked about Mbaizo yet. Right back from Philadelphia. So he is an international, 22 years old, 171,000 last year. He's played regularly with Cameroon's U23s. He's a player that you wonder if he's ready to step up and be a starter in this league day in and day out. And if that's what you're looking for, there's other options. At the right back position, there's other options. We already mentioned Alvis Powell, Hector Jimenez, Eric Valentin. But if you're looking for potential and a manageable salary number to get that potential to come good, he's actually on 71,000 a year. Sorry, not 171. He could be a guy that you could consider. I don't have him picked, and it's the international slot that would probably lead me to not take him, because I think internationals, at least for Miami, are going to be very vital in the way that they build. For Nashville, maybe not as much, and maybe they'd be a little more willing to take him. But the question about Mbaizo is going to be, can he start 25 games for you next year? If he can, you're going to take him. If you're not sure, you're going to take somebody else.
I had Galena as my Philadelphia selection.
He's an absolute wild card, and we'll get to him in a second. So round 5 in the mock drafts, Evan Bush to Miami from MLSsoccer.com, Harry Shipp to Nashville. We've talked about Shipp. On the other side, Jaleel Anibaba from The Athletic to Miami, and Kofi Opare from The Athletic to Nashville. So we've talked about Shipp. Evan Bush, I just do not see him getting picked here. And it's nothing against Evan Bush. I think Evan Bush is a good goalkeeper, but I think there are better, cheaper options with more upside at the goalkeeper position. So I'm not expecting to see Bush. If you're looking for a goalkeeper, if you're Miami, to play for a year 2 while you're bringing Drake Callender along, remember you're going to have a USL League One team in Miami that Callender can get his professional debut with. I think you're looking at, and again, some of this is going to depend on other picks, because if you're going to pick a goalkeeper here, you're going to have to pick a goalkeeper from a team that hasn't had a player picked. Jeff Attinella is one at 31 years old, $188,000 a year. I think he's a starter in this league. Matt Lampson from the LA Galaxy, 30 years old. He's only on $71,000 a year. He's been a starter in this league. We mentioned Alec Can before. If he is available at this point, he would be a player that I think can be a starter in this league. Brian Rowe from Orlando was a starter in this league last year, and I think he did pretty well. 31 years old, $98,000 a year. He was a starter previously for the LA Galaxy. Rowe makes more sense to me than Bush because of the contract number and maybe just a little more steady. Bush is a great shot stopper, but Bush makes some really big mistakes at times that can cost you. And for an expansion team, I think steady is more important to build around than spectacular defensively. So I'm not buying the Evan Bush one. Harry Shipp to Nashville, we've talked about. That's where I had him going, was to Nashville, so I could see that. Jaleel Anibaba as the New England player picked to Miami from The Athletic. Anibaba is another one of those veteran defenders. He played on the left side for New England at the end of the year. He's mostly played center back, but he can play on the right side. He's the center back variety of Hector Jimenez in that he's a versatile player, but Jimenez is probably best out wide in the back line. Anibaba's best in the middle. 9 years in MLS. Just a veteran. He's been around. The thing that Stejskal points out in the mock draft at The Athletic is that he's a free agent this winter. So if you get to round 5, and this, I do like this is where they picked him, if this is what they see happening, because you get to round 5, you've probably already had guys that you identified come off the board. You're probably scrambling a little bit. You're probably fielding calls as well from players that are still available in the draft of teams that say, hey, pick him. We want him, and we'll trade you stuff. But if you make the decision that Anibaba is a player we want, we don't want to risk him going into free agency, then you would pick him here and sign him. And it would give you the driver's seat to sign him. So the logic makes sense. I don't see another New England player picked outside of Agudelo, which I do have some question marks about after hearing McDonough's comments on Extra Time. Anibaba could make sense. Kofi Apare is a younger, less experienced, or honestly not younger, sorry, less experienced version of Anibaba. I think there's probably other guys that I would lean to before Kofi Apare. Now, the question would be, have players from their teams been picked already? And that's what you're going to have to balance. If they have, I don't think there's another Colorado Rapids player that gets picked. So Apare would be one that would be available at this point. I think in terms of center backs, Brent Kallman from Minnesota, if Dunladi is not picked, Kallman could be a guy that is 29, 152,000, that could step straight into a team and play. Forrest Lasso with his time in Nashville. Although Nashville could easily say, you know what, we'll be able to get Lasso in the waiver draft. So we don't need to use an expansion draft pick here to get him. And I could buy that logic. But Lasso being there last year, I'll be a little surprised if he doesn't end up there. Other center backs, I rate other guys a little bit ahead of Apare. But if players have been picked from their teams, then Apare might make the most sense.
Yeah, I had Lasso going, and it was to Nashville inside the framework of the draft.
Yeah, they don't have to, just because they could decide, you know what, there's not a huge demand, we'll be able to get him. They could risk that, but just like we talked about with Anibaba, they might say, you know what, we don't want to risk that. We've got our last pick. There's nobody else on the board that we have to get. This is who we want to get, even though we think we could get him in another way. Let's go ahead and just not even put it to risk.
And then I did have, like I said, I did have keepers going to each side, but I had them going higher than round 4 and 5.
I ultimately only ended up with one keeper going. I had Brian Rowe going to Miami. My other pick that has not come up is Justin Morrow. I had Justin Morrow going to Nashville because if they play that 3-5-2, and let's combine drafting a little bit here, and if they end up coming out of this draft with a back line of Ibiaga, Dave Romney, who they've already gotten, let's say they go ahead and take Lasso, and then they pick Morrow and Alvis Powell as your wingbacks. That's a pretty good back line to start with. That's not bad at all, and you could still go out in free agency and sign a veteran player or get one in a trade, kind of like what Atlanta did with Michael Parkhurst. I think Atlanta and LAFC both showed the value of building a strong defense in year one for an expansion team, whereas Cincinnati and Minnesota did not do that. And you look at the results. It's critical. So if you go into the season, if you're Nashville, with Ibiaga, Romney, Lasso, or veteran mixed into there for one of those spots, with, in my opinion, high-quality wingbacks in Powell and Morrow. If you're going to play 3-5-2, and then you play McCarty, Godoy, Jones, two of those three as your two holding midfielders, you have a number 10 of Hani Mukhtar, and you have two forwards. If it's Lancaster, if it's Rios, if it's somebody else you go get, you've still got two designated player spots. If you go get a Harry Shipp, he can factor into that in a rotation. You've got some versatility with players to play four in the back. Nashville could really come out of this with a very solid base. And if you come out of this, if you're Nashville and you look at what Cincinnati did wrong and you look at what Minnesota did wrong, and you say, man, we're probably going to be closer to that in terms of the way we build our team. We're not going to go drop $10 million on a transfer fee. We're not going to go, get a huge name. We're going to be closer in the way we spend to Minnesota and Cincinnati, but we're not going to do it that way because we're going to build a solid defensive team first. You could do that by the end of the day today, and you could be in a really good position with a base to then go hit on two designated players, hit on TAM signings, and be a really solid team in year one. Just because you don't spend as much as what Atlanta and LAFC did and what we expect Miami to do doesn't mean you have to be Cincinnati and Minnesota. They just missed on so many things that they did.
Now, there were a couple of guys that I had on my list that we have not talked about. You said Michi Galini was a wild card.
Yeah, he's a 19-year-old on a minimum, $57,000. He's an international, but he's 19, and he's a player that if you feel good about what you have and you get to that last round, you might say, you know what, let's buy the lottery ticket. Let's see if he turns into something special.
And then would Didi Traore of LA be the same way?
Yeah, he's one that I think will get picked, and I could see him going to Miami because, originally before I went back and double-checked things, Marcos Lopez from San Jose was the player in this kind of role that jumped out to me, even though he's on a
that
much
was the
bigger
other name
contract.
I had on the list.
San Jose's made trades with both teams, so I'm not expecting Lopez to get picked because of that. I'm assuming that part of those trades have been, hey, stay away from our players. I would think that'll happen, so I think that's why they could afford to risk Lopez. But Traore is 20 years old. He's on a minimum. He's an international, but he really showed well in games for the Galaxy and for Galaxy 2. I think he'll go to Miami, and I think he could be the number one pick either to keep or to trade because I think his trade value is very high, but I also could see Miami saying, we're good to give him games right now. We think he's ready to go right now. And if we put some veterans on that back line around him to help him, we can roll with that because the upside's worth it. I could see that happening. I think he goes to Miami.
And Ricky Ricardo has given us the MLS multiplex version of the mock.
I did not see the multiplex one. What do we have?
Miami, Brandon Vasquez. This is from the top. And
Pretty
assuming
consistent.
that this
A
is
lot of
all
people have
keepers.
that.
Nashville's first selection, Evan Bush.
I don't think. I think there's other goalkeepers out there. And I definitely don't think it's a first pick. You want a wild card from Montreal that I could see somebody saying, you know what, we're gonna take a flyer here. Who did you say?
Jackson Hamel.
He's not really a flyer. He would be a solid forward as a backup. Jason Vargas, who is available here. He's on loan in Chile. He's an international, 22 years old. He didn't click with them when they signed him, but he is, I believe, under contract through next year, maybe even through 2021. He's 22 and he's on $225,000. If you feel like, you know what, we'll let that loan play out. We'll let him stay on loan. We'll go ahead and pick up his rights because maybe that team will want to buy him at the end of the loan, or maybe we bring him back and he comes into our team and is a better fit. Evan Bush doesn't feel like the pick for me because of other options from the Montreal roster and other goalkeepers that I think are going to be on better numbers. Could end up completely being wrong, but I don't see it with Bush being picked here. Definitely not that early.
Right. Round 2, Miami Tyler Miller, Nashville Will Bruin.
We've talked about Miller. I think it's way too risky. Will Bruin, coming off an injury, if he wasn't coming off of an injury that forced him to miss most of the season, I would be all on that pick because I've always liked Will Bruin. I've always felt like he has been underrated in this league. Is he a 20-goal scorer in this league? No. Is he a number 9 that you can build around and is a complete player, brings others into the game, can give you the hold-up play, get you double-digit goals? Yeah, I think he is. I think he still is. The injury puts a question mark at the end of that sentence. And his age definitely factors into it as well. So Bruin would be risky, or it wouldn't blow my mind if he got picked. But the injury just makes that a concern for me.
Round 3, Miami Ben Sweat, Nashville Sasha Kljestan.
I don't buy the Sasha Kljestan one at all. That makes no sense to me at his price tag and what he's shown you in the last couple of years. Sweat was the early idea from New York. I would go Ibeagha because of a difference of over $100,000 in salary, and as a center back and as other left back options in this draft. I don't think Sweat's quite as valuable. Ibeagha is a little more valuable because there's not as many center backs. Wouldn't shock me if you go Sweat instead, but it seems like most of the experts, and I'm with them, are going towards Ibeagha as a New York City player picked.
Here's what they say on Kljestan. His production dropped off after joining Orlando, but that is a common occurrence and could experience a refresh in Nashville. A reunion with former Red Bulls teammate Dax McCarty could be good for this new team.
It's possible. His drop-off didn't look the same as other players who dropped off in Orlando. His drop-off looked a little bit more of he's hit the wall, and he doesn't have the same physical abilities that he did before. And I don't know if that comes back at his age. So if you make that decision, if you're Nashville and you say, we would like to have him in the mix because he's a veteran, we'd reunite him with McCarty, you're taking him last if he's still there. And nobody's picked an Orlando player. That's the only way I see that one happening. But even then, you look at Nashville, and you've got Hani Mukhtar in that role. And Mukhtar is your designated player. I don't... Unless you pick him and you think that he will accept being a first option off the bench to change a game and playing maybe 20 times, 25 times a year off the bench and starting a handful of times, if you think he'll accept that, okay. Just feels too risky for me. And he's on a big contract, too.
Round 4, Miami Ethan Finley, Nashville Edgar Castillo.
Both are solid. Both are guys that I had on my short list. Finley, winger in Minnesota, on the right side, can create havoc, can create goals for others, can score goals himself. Didn't get as much run in Minnesota as I expected. Makes a lot of sense. And you don't have a ton of Minnesota players that jump out at you. Dan Lottie is the one that Athletic and MLS Soccer went with, and I'm not completely sold there. Coleman is another one I think you consider as a center back. But, yeah, Finley's not a crazy pick at all. I think I could see Finley completely. And then Castillo... The only thing that would hold me back from Castillo is the depth of left backs that are available. And Castillo would be one of the older ones. And if I'm going to go with a player of that age, I'm going to go with Justin Morrow instead. But the left backs you have available in this draft, Ben Sweat, Didi Traore, Mohamed El Munir, Connor Maloney, who can play on either side in the back line from Columbus, who's 24 on a $71,000 deal. Maloney wouldn't blow my mind if he's picked at all here either. Morrow, who we've talked about. Waylon Francis, another Columbus player we've talked about. Ashton Morgan from Toronto. Mikey Ambrose, also Seth Sinovic, who we have not talked about, another veteran, 32 years old, $143,000 from Sporting Kansas City. Jimenez can play on the left side. I just think there's so many left backs that Castillo gets lost in the shuffle.
Round 5, Miami, Connor Maloney. Nashville, Zarek Valentin.
Love the Maloney one. Valentin, we talked about, agree with that one too. Maloney is one who just missed out of mine, but Maloney could easily get picked. I would go Jimenez instead of Maloney when you talk about crew players because he's a little more versatile. But if you make the decision that, you know what, we just want a guy on a low deal here that can play minutes for us, Maloney would be your guy. Maloney's 24. Maloney, yeah, I could see it. I think Jimenez gets picked before him and it takes that option off the board. But if teams decide, you know what, we don't want Jimenez, we don't want to pick a 31-year-old here, Maloney is the better pick from Columbus, in my opinion, than some of the other options.
Tafka wants to know what level of communication occurs between new clubs and their potential expansion draft picks. It seems like often a failure to discuss with the player could result in some serious resentment and anger on the player's side. Thoughts?
Well, it's tough. I mean, Miami would have the opportunity to pick whoever they want. I don't think it's actually played out that way. That I'm not sure what kind of resentment Tafka's getting at, because I can't think of anybody who was picked by an expansion team that ended up being angry about it outside of a player who didn't want to leave where they were. And usually the expansion team knew that and picked that player because they wanted to then trade them back. The Brian Ching one with Montreal was the one that dragged on for a long time. He did not want to go to Montreal. He wanted to stay in Houston. Montreal, I think, knew that and was trying to get as much as possible out of the Dynamo to trade him back. They ultimately did. I think that's the only one. There might have been another one back in the late 2000s era of expansion drafts where you had that type of situation. You haven't really had it here lately. I mean, you look at the last one, Cincinnati took Darren Maddox, Kai Kamara, who was traded for an international slot, Roland Lamah, Eric Alexander, Hassan Ndam. 3 of those guys finished the year Cincinnati players, and Ndam was loaned out and didn't play. Lamah and Maddox were both there. Alexander was traded midseason. LAFC picked Tyler Miller first, Latif Blessing, which turned out to be a great pick, Marco Arena, who contributed early on for them before he was replaced by Diamande. Then they picked Yuka Rayatala and Raheem Edwards and traded both of them to Montreal for Laurent Simon. Those were one-team drafts. Those are a little different. You look at the Atlanta one. Atlanta took Donnie Toya first, traded him. They knew that was going to happen already. They got a number 8 pick in the Super Draft. Turns out to be Julian Gressel. Minnesota picked Chris Duval, traded him to Montreal with allocation money for Johan Venegas. Didn't work out. Atlanta picked Zach Lloyd. Didn't work out. Never recovered from injury. Minnesota picked Colin Warner, who played a good bit of minutes for them in the early days. Atlanta picked Clint Irwin, traded him back to Toronto for allocation money. Minnesota picked Mohamed Saeed and then traded him at the end of March to Colorado. Atlanta picked Mikey Ambrose, who stayed the whole way. Minnesota picked Jeff Attinella, who they traded to Portland for Miguel Ibarra's rights, who's still there, and a second-round draft pick. Atlanta took Alec Kann, been here the whole way. Minnesota took Femi Hollinger-Jansen, who was traded to New England for Bobby Shuttleworth, who played minutes for them in key moments. So I don't think you've had any issues in recent years with that. It's probably earlier on. If you're looking at a guy like that, I mean, you look at the veterans, you look at Seth Sinovic. Would he really want to go play for an expansion team at this point at 32 and haven't been in Sporting for so long? Probably not. I mean, I guess Jimenez could potentially fit into that. He's been in Columbus so long. Those are really the only 2 out of the guys that I looked at that could potentially be picked here that just might not necessarily want to go. Now, the flip side is what happened with Osvaldo Alonso last year in Seattle. He was angry that he was left exposed, and that was one of the things that led to him leaving. That comes into play here as well, as players who get left exposed, and now you're already getting some speculation in Seattle that Roman Torres, if they want to bring him back, well, they're going to have to smooth over some, anger out of being exposed in the expansion draft. I don't think Roman Torres gets picked. I'd be surprised if he did, but just the fact that he was exposed, maybe he's like, well, you don't really value me and you would risk me leaving, so I don't like that. I'm not coming back, or you're going to have to pay me more to make me feel better about it. It's all negotiation. It's just outside of that number one pick, Topka, you really can't. I mean, you can always talk, but you can't guarantee anything because you don't know what's going to happen. So, I mean, if you've got your 3 minutes ready to go and you feel like, well, I want to pick Seth Senovic, but he might not want to come here. Let me call him really quick and find out. That's where you're at. You just don't have a lot of time to do it outside of that number one pick. Let's take a break here, and we'll get into more questions. We've got more on Twitter from you guys. Tweet at us your thoughts, expansion draft, anything else going on you want to dig into. We'll do that in the rest of this hour. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. November 19th. Getting ready for the expansion draft tonight. You can watch it on MLSsoccer.com and all of their various platforms. A couple other things before we get back into Twitter. Rumors. There's two big ones in the MLS world right now. The Gianluca Busio rumor made the rounds yesterday. According to reports, Fiorentina have made offers in the $3 to $4 million range. Sporting Kansas City wants $10 million. There's also been links from Manchester United, Inter, several other top European clubs. Negotiation is a thing, and I saw some strange reactions to Sporting Kansas City just not taking the first offer out there, which, no, you can't. Like, are you going to get $10 million? Probably not. There just aren't many 17-year-olds in the world that are going to get that. And yes, there are some, and they're usually Brazilian. There's a few other countries that a 17-year-old has a little more cachet than the United States. I don't expect Busio to get 10. But why don't you start in that point if you're negotiating, if you're Sporting Kansas City? And if somebody says, we'll give you $10 million guaranteed, cool, done, take it. If you can't get 10 straight up, but you can get 5 plus potential incentives that take it into that 10 ballpark, then that's where you go. Just because they didn't take the first offer doesn't mean Sporting Kansas City did anything wrong, is where I'm at here. There's this weird perception about MLS teams actually negotiating deals like it's a bad thing. You have to. You can't just get taken advantage and take the first offer and say, well, we want our young players to go play in Europe, so we'll just take whatever we can get. You can still want your young players to go play in Europe if you are American soccer people, but it is a business, and Kansas City has invested in the development of Gianluca Busio, and he is an asset to Sporting Kansas City, and they have to protect their business. So they're going to try to get as much as they can for him. I don't think it'll ultimately be 10. But I think with incentives, it could be in that ballpark. Much bigger deal that is being talked about, the LA Galaxy, according to Nicolo Shira on Twitter, in talks with Edinson Cavani to replace Zlatan. Reportedly, the offer is €7 million a year until the end of 21. So it would be a 2-year deal, unless they can't get him until the summer. Then it'd be an 18-month deal. Also, according to Shira, Miami and Atletico Madrid are interested in Cavani. PSG don't want to sign him to a new deal, so the thought is that they're going to want to move him quickly to try to get something for him. Also in the Galaxy front, they announced yesterday that the option to extend the loan of Christian Pavone has been picked up. He will be a designated player on the 2020 roster. Kevin Baxter in LA reports that the announcement at Bank of California Stadium on Wednesday morning with MLS and Liga MX will be that the MLS All-Star Game will be on July 29th, 2020 at Bank of California Stadium between the MLS All-Stars and the Liga MX All-Stars. Sign me up. That's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to that.
Going back to the math real quick, €7 million, like $7.75 million in translation.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Let's see. On the Twitters this morning, Swickster, with his Tuesday thought, odds that Chicago move to the West with the addition of Nashville and Miami.
I think it makes the most sense. The Nashville-Atlanta match announcement was not in any way saying that they'll play again at Mercedes-Benz, which if they're in the same conference, they would. If they're not in the same conference, then this could be the only time they play. I think that'd be foolish. I think it'd be foolish to separate Nashville from Atlanta and Cincinnati, potential rivals and great spectacles for the league. So MLS would be crazy to do that. Chicago moving to the West would just make more sense and would get them 2 games a year with Minnesota, which I think is a good thing. So Chicago needs to go to the West. I think that's the one that makes the most sense.
Also on the board, Emery Russell. Don't think we talked about it on yesterday's show. Any thoughts on the Brian Fernandez situation in Portland? Was that a team decision or a league decision? # Tuesday Thought.
We don't know, and I don't know if we're going to know until the legalities of this get sorted out. So couple things. First, hopefully Brian Fernandez gets whatever help that he needs, and it sounds like that is something that is needed. He was in the substance abuse program with MLS, and his contract was canceled because of breaking the terms of that program. Now, there are rumors because MLS reportedly was preparing legal action against Necaxa, the club he was bought from in the summer. There are rumors that there were things that were not divulged at that time when it came to drug testing and such, because Portland made it very clear early on that they had done their homework and done their due diligence on Fernandez. It was also known that he had had issues with substance abuse in the past, and if you connect the dots on the fact that there's a rumor of legal action with Necaxa, you'd have to draw the conclusion that something was not said in that negotiation, and money was spent believing one thing, and it was actually not true. So it's all speculation at this point until that stuff gets worked out, and if that becomes public, we'll give you a heads up. But it's somewhat of a league decision because of violating the terms of the substance abuse policy and program, but I don't think it's something that the team necessarily was fighting against. Portland, at least according to reports out of the Timbers organization, they will still support Fernandez in anything that they can. In the meantime, there's also rumors out of Argentina that Racing will be signing him. So keep an eye on it. I think it's going to get weird with lawyers because it sounds like there were things that were not made public in that negotiation with Necaxa that should have been. This all happened really suddenly. So first off, you just hope that a talented player in Brian Fernandez can get back to that, and you hope that he can, get back on the straight and narrow with everything and be able to play to the fullest of his potential. But you also, if you're the Portland Timbers and you're MLS, you've got to protect your investment because they threw a lot of money to Necaxa to bring Brian Fernandez in, and it sounds like there were issues with it along the way. So we'll have to wait and see.
Tafka also remembers Eurosport magazine, kind of led him to being outcast a little bit. He was wearing stuff no one else was in high school.
Okay. I was, but I don't remember being outcast because of it. It was just, the soccer people were kind of in their own clique, but I guess we weren't. Soccer was its own thing, but it wasn't completely outcast. It was like weird jocks because it was part of the jock group, but not necessarily like football, basketball jocks. So it was kind of unique. And Eurosport magazine was awesome. And whoever at Eurosport had the ability to see into the future and grab the soccer.com domain, give that person a lifetime contract too.
And at my high school, you could tell who the soccer guys were because instead of wearing traditional tennis shoes, they wore Sambas.
Yeah.
It was just how it was. And Tafka did come back from his previous discussion about talking about individual players being put into expansion pools. He says he was, if a player has a starting role with a current club, family settled in, kids, et cetera, and the expansion team comes in and says, "You're ours now, best start packing," it seems really harsh on the player not to be contacted and discussed first. He was talking about way before the draft, with each team selecting 10 players, 10 separate clubs. Do they call anyone in advance and gauge interest, I guess, on certain players?
I don't know. I'm not in the front office, so I couldn't tell you. There's not way in advance. You didn't know what this list was going to be until Saturday morning, so there's just not time. It's one of the difficulties with leagues that have expansion and have expansion drafts. It happens in all sports. It's both sides. If you're a player who is established in a market, this is the nature of being a professional athlete. It's not even just a MLS thing because you get traded. You get, your contract doesn't get renewed. You get cut. Those things happen, and it's a huge challenge. But just like I said about Osvaldo Alonso and potentially Roman Torres, the flip side is also there that you are left exposed in an expansion draft, and you're angry that you were left exposed. So you might not want to stay where you feel like, well, I'm not wanted.
Ricky Ricardo says he's not sure if you got into it last night on Soccer Over There, but you see the craziness that's going to be the Qatar 2022 World Cup and this schedule. SB Nation article.
Yeah, it's stupid, which is not a surprise because it was expected to be stupid all the way around because it's going to be in November, but it's even dumber because it is the shortest World Cup in terms of days since 1978. And in 1978, the tournament had 16 teams, half of what we'll be playing in 2022. The reason why it's short is because it's in November, because the final is expected to be December 18th. Boxing Day is kind of a thing in England and in the Premier League. They don't want to lose those games. So that's December 26th. December 18th, December 26th. Okay, yep, there's not a lot of time. So you're going to be cramming all of these games in to get them done. You're going to have, match days where you'll have multiple groups playing. It'll be more than the 3 games we normally see on a match day in a World Cup in recent years. It'll be like 5 or 6. And you'll probably have multiple games at the same time, and it's just, the whole thing is stupid. The fact that it's in Qatar is stupid, because we know how it happened to be there. It's called corruption, and there's a bunch of people that are in jail because of it. The whole build-up to the World Cup has been incredibly ridiculous on so many different fronts. Stadiums, the way they're getting these stadiums built. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. So the fact that they've added a ridiculous schedule to the whole process is not exactly a shock. There's no other way to do it. You're boxed in already. You're not, you've made the decision not to move it. You are locked into the European leagues, which have a ton of power, saying, yeah, you need to get this thing done with as fast as possible because we have games to play. It's all ridiculous. That whole year, starting with the MLS season at the beginning of 2022, because you're going to have your final. All right, it starts on the 21st. You can probably have your final about the same time. You might want to have it a week earlier for MLS Cup so players can join their pre-World Cup camps. What are you going to do in Europe? Like, leagues aren't going to stop at the beginning of November. So are you going to have players play like the weekend before they go join their World Cup team and then just jump into a World Cup and then play for 3 weeks and then jump back into their club team? I guess. That whole year is going to be madness, and it's bad for the sport.
James Masters and Amanda Davis from CNN Sport caught up with Nasser Al-Khater in Doha, and the interview, I want to say, was first time I saw it was yesterday. And obviously, he consistently denies any wrongdoing during the World Cup bid process.
Sure.
Then discussed criticism that Qatar's 2022 committee got. He says, I think we were expecting it. I don't think we were expecting the severity of it. We know for a fact that every major event has its fair share of criticism. Is that based on reality? Is that based on perception? Is that based on selling headlines? We know that we recognize that. Was Qatar treated unfairly? Yes, in my opinion, very much so. I believe that Qatar has been judged by the court of perception very early on, end quote.
Yes, it has been, because the perception is that you've taken a tournament that has always been in the summer because that's where it fits into the calendar and put it into the middle of most worldwide leagues, which just that is massive disruption to the game. Forget the bid process. Forget the allegations of corruption. Forget the essential slavery that is being used to build stadiums. Put that to the side for a second. Just the fact that they're moving it in the calendar because, oh yeah, the whole thing we put the bid on about building these stadiums that were going to be air conditioned and be able to do all this, yeah, that's not going to work because it's not realistic. That's what won you the World Cup, by the way. That was the bid. Oh yeah, we can't do that. So we're going to have to move it to November. Last time I checked, I don't know what the Farmer's Almanac for Qatar says, but I would assume you could go back year after year after year and look at what the temperatures are going to be in certain times of the year and have a pretty good idea that playing a soccer tournament in Qatar in the normal time frame that said soccer
might
tournament
be temperate.
happens Yeah, it's probably not going to happen because it's dangerous. So, okay, you're going to do one of two things. You're going to make a bid that says we're going to build these stadiums that you can play indoors and this and that. And yeah, that's how we're going to do it. Or you're going to play the tournament at a different time of year. You didn't win the bid on playing the tournament at a different time of year because you would not have won the bid that way. Again, push all the other stuff to the side. Push all the other stuff to the side and just look at it from that perspective. If the bid was we're going to play the World Cup in November and December, you would have gotten 0 votes from Europe. 0. Even then bring the corruption into it. Even if there was payments made, even if all of that happened, there's no way that people could have knowingly voted for a World Cup in November, December. There's no way they could have justified that because of how much disruption it's going to bring. Now, the schedule, it is a draft. It is not public, and it's according to football.london that has the draft schedule for 2022 that has been circulated to football clubs with Boxing Day fixtures taking place 9 days after the final, with the Premier League starting a week early and ending a week later than normal, which means there's going to be more midweek games, which means there's going to be even more compression. It would not have won the bid if this was when the bid said the tournament would happen. So many different things. Yes, the perception is that people do not like this idea of this World Cup. And the reality is that they have valid reasons for not liking it. Beyond anything that is alleged. Just the fact that you're going to play it in this time of year is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
But they're being unfairly judged already in the world of public opinion.
On the other stuff, okay, if you want to say that this didn't happen, even though there's a lot of credible evidence that it did, whatever. In the part that is known, you're going to play the tournament in November, December. We don't know if it's going to be 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. Okay, whatever. You're going to play it in that time of year. It's being judged on that. Forget the other judgment. On that. And it's ridiculous. You bring the other stuff into it, it's even more ridiculous. / potentially criminal. But just the fact that you're going to do it in the time frame you are, which is not what you said in the bid, it's ridiculous.
Go to CNN.com if you want to watch the whole interview with Davies and El Qatar, and they have a bunch of other elements attached to soccer as well. But it's about 4.5 minutes, and it's an interview, and they are walking through one of the major stadia in Doha. So that would be, if you have time and you want to catch up on what's going on in Qatar, that would be where it's at CNN.com in their football section.
Very cool.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the board. I think we actually are caught up because Tafka says, yeah, soccer players in the 90s and early 2000s. We're jocks. Yeah, that's about right.
I mean, kind of were. Like, even if it was a different kind of jock, like, at least that's what it was at my high school. Maybe my high school was weird. We were a new high school in general, so it was all kind of crazy at that time. But anyway, but
yeah, we're caught up.
Bounce off of that. Okay, so a couple things tonight. Wild Heaven, the drinks start flowing at 7. We'll start talking on microphones at 7:30. Mike Conti, Kevin Egan coming out to talk about the season, talk about the expansion draft that'll be concluded by then, talk about any trades that have happened after it, to talk about Nashville next year, to talk about just what it's like to do what we do, and we'll be taking questions from you guys. So come out to Wild Heaven West End tonight. Be there by 7. We'll start talking at 7:30. Really looking forward to it. It's something that Kevin and Mike and I kind of impromptu did amongst ourselves in Montreal while we were waiting to get on a plane, and it's like, this would actually be a lot of fun. I think people might enjoy hearing it, so that's what it'll be. It'll just be 3 guys talking about whatever comes up. We'll see what happens. We have not There is no rundown. There is no organized thing here. It is going to be us talking and then taking questions, and we'll see where it goes. It could be a lot of fun. So we'll see a bunch of you tonight. Thanks, everybody who's already chimed in and said, hey, you're coming, and hey, you want a scarf, because you can get those tonight, too. Go check out the Teespring store, soccer-down-here on teespring.com. to see hoodies, to see stickers, to see T-shirts, and other stuff you can get to support the show. We'll be back tomorrow to recap everything expansion draft related and the moves that will come after it, because I think there will be a lot of things that spin off of this. Option declarations have to be sent into the league by Thursday morning. And then you start to get into, okay, who's available in a reentry draft, who's available in waivers, who's available as a free agent, all those types of things. So it's about to get hectic in the MLS world, more hectic than it has been, and we'll be on top of it as best as we can. Thanks, y'all, for all the questions this morning. Thanks for buying shirts and scarves and such, and we'll be talking to you tonight from Wild Heaven in the West End. Much plot, y'all.
Much plot, y'all.